The number one pattern that has been sewn during quarantine is the Barrett Bralette. And I totally can understand why. So on average, it takes about 2 to 3 hours to sew. If you can speed right through it, you can probably get it done in an hour and a half. I've definitely done that before when there's a time crunch, just whipped one out. But if you are a slower sewist, and like to take your time, then maybe 4 hours. But my point is that it's a super quick sew that you can finish in a morning or an afternoon and wear out. It also is available in sizes extra small through 3XL, so very size inclusive. There is also a video tutorial on Create-A-Bug for the Barrett, which walks you through each and every step. I know that the Barrett is a bralette that a lot of new sewers get into, and this is exactly for them. So it'll walk you through each and every step, from cutting your pattern, how do you cut a PDF pattern, to cutting your fabric, and all sewing steps. Now you will have to sign up for Create-A-Bug, but it's less than $5 and you have access to all their amazing classes, not just Madalynne's. So it's totally worth it. There are also a ton of kits for the Barrett Bralette, which makes it so much easier if you can just download a pattern and then get a kit. You don't have to source all the fabrics and trims elsewhere. So there are a ton of reasons why the Barrett has become a tried and true. I wear mine day in and day out. I'm wearing my Eloise today, which the Eloise was based on the Barrett. Now the Barrett was released over 2 years ago. Can you believe that? Holy crap, where does time go when you're sewing lingerie? So it was released over 2 years ago, and there are a couple questions that have come up over and over again. So today I'm gonna be answering those most commonly questions and then also turning them into kind of tips and tricks to make sewing and fitting a little bit easier. So let's get started. So the first thing is, let's talk about the vertical seam. So some of these tips are gonna kind of go against, not go against, but they're going to change the sewing directions. But I just kind of want to put this out there at the beginning. When I write sewing directions, I try to make it as bare bones and minimal as possible, because I know there are a lot of new sewers who sew Madalynne patterns, so I don't want to inundate them with too much information. So I try to make it super simple. And I also kind of keep in mind that not everybody has a serger, so I try my best to leave sergers out of sewing instructions, because I know people will be put off that, oh my god, I don't have a serger, I can't make this. But most lingerie fabrics do not fray, so you can omit serging steps most of the time. So let's talk about the vertical seam. So in the instructions, what you do is you sew the vertical seams together and you clean finish it. So by that, you sew the seam in a way so that the seam allowances are encased in the seam. Now on the inside, this results in a nicer finish. And I have model A and then model B. So in this instance, the seam was clean finished, which if you refer to your directions, you'll know exactly what I mean. There are a ton of pictures. Now, this is a nicer finish. To all sewers will be like, oh, this is a super nice finish on the inside. Now, be careful, because it is a nicer finish, but on sheer fabrics, it will result, especially in the black Swiss dot, it will result in a black line. So that's a design choice, and I'm going to show you. So here are two, let me hang with my girls here. So here are two Barrett Bralettes. So one, the seam was clean finished, and you can see that there is a black line. Now listen, if it doesn't bother you, by all means, you and your significant other are probably the only, maybe cats too, dogs, animals, are the only ones seeing this. So if you're comfortable with that and you kind of like the nicer finish, do it. But if you want a cleaner look on the outside, so all I did here, catch this wrinkles. All I did here is I just sewed this guy to that guy and finished it with a serge on the inside. Now you're probably gonna say, like, can we see that closer up? So I'm gonna have a blog post after this that's gonna show you all the detail shots of this. But you can definitely see in this video that this has a black line and this has no line. So totally a design decision, but also this seam, this type of seam, encasing it, so the seam allowances are cleaner, takes a lot longer than this. So if you want a quicker sew, for sure, if you want to speed up your time so you can do an hour and a half, this one. Just sew the center front cup to the side cup, serge it, call it a day. Move on to the next step. So the second tip that I'm going to have for you is the strap point. So right here. Now, so what this is something that isn't super obvious on the pattern, nor is it called out in the, she was rolling away, so I just scooted her out. So this is not something that is obvious on the pattern and isn't called out in the instructions, but this has happened a lot. So I have just a sample right here. So at the strap point, when you're sewing the strap point, a lot of people will sew it to a point. Again, they just think that it comes to a point. Now, common sense, once you sew it, you'll be like, oh, why did I do that? Now, common sense, you're going to eventually have to wrap this around. You're going to have to feed a ring through this and then wrap it around in order to create the strap point. I didn't do that very pretty, but that's basically what you're going to have to do to create that strap point. Now, if you sew it at a point, you won't be able to put the ring on and then fold it back nicely. So what I say here is that when you sew your picot elastics at the strap point, go down about a ½ inch, then curve it out. Go down about a ½ inch and then curve it towards the underarm. This will make it so that it has a really nice finish when you put the straps on. Because if not, you're trying to shove the ring in and then put it back and it can get really ugly. So if you sew it straight for about a ½ inch, that will really help to give a really nice clean finish when you put the ring on, turn it back, and then sew that bar tack. The next point is probably the most helpful for fuller busts. So even for smaller busts, but especially helpful for fuller busts. So whether you are an extra small or a 3XL, this center front seam, there's a lot of stress on there. And over time, especially, every single kit for the Barrett is made out of stretch fabrics. So there's a lot of stress put at this point. It's stretch fabrics. And if you're a 3XL, there's a lot of stress on that one point. And what can happen is it can warp over time this way and that way. So number one tip here, and it's gonna change up the sewing instructions. So the sewing instructions for the Barrett have you finish the center front seam, then attach the elastics here, 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 and here. Now, if you want to add a little thing that will add a lot of stability is what you're gonna do here is you are going to assemble the front bralette cups. You are going to finish the neckline, finish the cutout on both sides. Now I don't have the back band on this, but I just did that for demonstration. Once that is finished, then you are going to sew the center front seam. Then you're going to sew it here. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam allowance, but when you do that, use this. I will, again, my blog post will have a picture of this, of the finished seam. But use a non-stretch fabric like sheer cup lining. So this is super lightweight, but it is so strong. So once you're just gonna place it over that, and then you're just gonna sew a straight stitch right here with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. It will add so much stability. And the reason why I use this is because you have a lot of layers of elastic here, and especially if you're using power knit, it'll get really bulky if you try to use another non-stretch fabric like twill tape or I think it's rayon tape that they use in regular garment sewing, that will get so bulky. But if you use this sheer cup lining, and if you sew lingerie, you probably have this in your stash and you need like a little triangle of that. So that will be super helpful. It won't stretch out either way. It won't warp over time. And it's just one added step. So that is the third tip. The fourth tip is your bottom band. So again, when I write the instructions, I try to make it as simple as possible. Plus, the Barrett Bralette was one of my first PDF patterns, so definitely the newer patterns have gotten a little bit better. But in the instructions, it tells you to cut the band elastic in one, and then put it on the bottom of the bralette. Now, if you are a girl, a full bust gal, which I have, side note, I have an awesome post on the difference between full bust and plus size lingerie. So if you are a full bust gal, definitely check out that. But if you are a full bust gal, meaning that you have a larger full bust measurement and a smaller ribcage measurement, and then it gets really small around your waist area, what I suggest doing, and what I've done with this guy too, cut your front and back. It'll take a little bit of math to do, but cut your front bottom band, sorry, I remember blank there, and your back bottom band, and then taper it in. Because naturally, now if you have a belly, you can just do it straight down, or if you're more rectangular shape, you can do it straight down. But if you taper in towards your waist, you will have to taper this in, and the best way to do that is to cut a front bottom band and a back bottom band, and then taper it down. This will prevent it from gaping, which definitely happens in the back here. So that is the fourth tip. The fifth tip is the strap. So I did the strap points, but then strap attachment in the back. So again, instructions are supposed to be super simple, but this is called a T-back, and that means that the straps are just attached at one point. Now, if you are a larger size, that's a lot. Even though the straps only account for 10% of the support of a bra, that can still be a lot of weight and stress put at one point. And what can happen is it can warp out, especially over time. So what you can do is you can attach it here and attach it here. You can see the line too that I attached it here and then at the bottom of the bralette. And also, if your machine has it, add a bar tack here and here, instead of just a straight stitch back and forth. Will add more stability. And this will also help with distributing the weight across the band, because remember, the band is where 80% of the support comes from. So if you can distribute that weight a little bit more rather than just at one point, it's gonna help with the support, and also it's gonna prevent your back band from riding up. So those are my 5 tips. Those are the